Oh, hello! You all know Mario, of course you do, he's a plumber, but what you might not know is when he was younger, he had a lot of different jobs. Oh yes, he did. So this month, I am presenting to you Mario's 1980s career cul-de-sacs. In Donkey Kong, Mario's a carpenter, albeit a carpenter who spends far more time climbing buildings to rescue women from gorillas than he does making furniture. The only time we see him using any tools at all is when he smashes things to bits with hammers, which, in case you'd forgotten, isn't what carpenters do. In the follow-up, Donkey Kong Jr., he's seemingly given up carpentry and switched to full-time kidnapping of endangered animals. When he realised that wasn't a job, he set up a new business, Mario's Cement Factory, before sacking off the whole thing and joining the army. Mario's Bombs Away sees him literally blowing up other humans. Jesus. Once he'd satisfied his bloodlust, he returned to New York to become a plumber, setting up a company with his brother Luigi. But their first job in the game Mario Brothers is to kill animals emerging from the city sewers, which, in case you'd forgotten, isn't what plumbers do. Presumably, the stench of the sewers was too much for Mario, who returned next to what he does best, bullying gorillas. In Donkey Kong Circus, Mario forced our primate pal to balance on a barrel and juggle pineapples. When the animal rights lobby got involved, he asked himself, what else do I love? And the answer? Sports. Any sports. Beginning with hockey, it wasn't long before people pointed out that despite being slightly less cruel than a circus, it wasn't okay to force his gorilla to play with him, so Mario then went human only as a tennis umpire, a golfer, and even got himself trapped in a pinball machine, which, in the context of this video, struggles to make any sense. Always more comfortable with a trade, Mario then had one last dabble in the construction industry, working for a wrecking crew, before settling once and for all as a plumber in 1985's Super Mario Bros. When he went quiet in 1986 and didn't release a single game, we should have known he was up to something. And so it proved to be when, the following year, he appeared in Famicom Grand Prix F1 Race, Mario's actual first dabble in the racing genre, some 5 years before he began a successful career in go-kart tournaments. That same year, he began refereeing boxing matches, because he is a delusional psychopath with a lust for violence and a pathological need to do every job ever. This scattergun approach to employment presumably was an early indicator of an underlying mental illness, as in Super Mario Bros. 2, he doesn't seem to have a job. In fact, the whole thing looks more like a drug-fueled hallucination than the next entry in his CV. Luigi, concerned for his brother's well-being and knowing his love of cars, took him on a cross-country drive in Famicom Grand Prix 2 3D Hot Rally in the hopes of getting him back on the level. Reinvigorated, Mario did return to the family plumbing business for Super Mario Bros. 3. It seemed he was his old self, but after a short holiday in Russia, Mario's delusions of grandeur resurfaced, and he not only convinced himself he could captain baseball teams, but also that he could pilot a spaceship. At least that's the nonsense narrative Nintendo applied to Alleyway, this shameless Game Boy Breakout clone. Clearly seeing his brother needed rest, Luigi sent him off on an extended period of R&R to visit relatives in the game Quicks, which saw Mario meeting his counterparts in Mexico, Spain, India, China, England, the Mushroom Kingdom, which is clearly the odd one out on this list, and Africa. The less said about this one, the better. You would have hoped the time away would have helped Mario clear his head, but he came back spouting nonsense about being a doctor, which, given he'd not had anywhere near long enough to do the training, was obviously nonsense. Of all the jobs he's done along the way, doctor's probably the boldest sideways move for a plumber. The only time a plumber's ever given me pills was at a festival in the 90s, and if anything, despite an initial spike in my mood, I ended up feeling much, much worse. Somehow, Luigi managed to get his brother off the pills and back to the pipes for 1990 Super Mario World. Thankfully, the pipes weren't of the crack variety, although he was still on the mushrooms. So there you go. That is the things that Mario did in the 80s. I have finished.